I would like to go over some conceptual and technical differences between using the innerHTML property and DOM nodes. Technically, the innerHTML property is a property of the JavaScript language. It's not part of the document object model. However, it is very easy to use and developers use it a lot. In this class, you will learn how to use the various DOM nodes to generate content. I would like to show you the distinct differences between the two. And I will look at the source code here. I have 4 paragraphs. Here I have p id equals p1. Now notice, there is some content already here, and these tags are placed on top of each other. innerHTML overwrites what's inside there. It doesn't matter whether the tags are far apart or whether the tags are smack together, and that's useful because we sometimes forget. The first child, writing to the page using firstChild.nodeValue, you have to have a first child. Therefore, these tags have to be apart. If you were to put them smack together, you would get an error message because there is no first child at that point. So using the first child is kind of tricky because if the tags are together, you can't write there using firstChild.nodeValue. When you create and append nodes, which is what we're doing here, it doesn't matter whether the tags are spread apart or together. However, when you create and append nodes, they are placed inside the parent. Therefore, they do not override the existing content, they are added to it. So that might be an issue if you're using a button generate the same thing over and over again. So let's take a look at how this works. Now here, this is P1, and when I click the button, this is using innerHTML, it's going to override it. Underneath is P2, and the tags are touching. We will still see some content using innerHTML. We also have a P3 element, and there is a space. We are going to insert the same code using firstChild.nodeValue. So let's go back and take a look at the code again, because here's what we're putting in there. We're putting in HTML and text. So we have hello world 1, hello world 2, and here's firstChild.nodeValue. And let's see what happens when we do this. So when I click on the change content, innerHTML overwrites, innerHTML places the HTML and the text inside the P tag regardless of whether those opening and closing tags are smacked together or not. However, when we use firstChild.nodeValue, you can't put HTML in there. Why? Because an HTML element is another node. It's an element node. The first child can only be text. If you wanted to put a first element child in, then that's a different story. But the first child refers to a text node when we're using firstChild.nodeValues. I have my 4th P and I have some content in it. Now I'm going to click the button Create Nodes. Now my node was appended. It's smack next to the existing content. It did not overwrite it. However, when I click again and again, it keeps on putting the same thing in there. When I click Change Content, innerHTML overwrites what's inside. Even here with firstChild.nodeValue, it's still overwriting it. I'm not having an issue. When I click, I have an issue. So for the assignment, you're going to be clicking a button and generating content. How do we deal with that? We need an if condition determining if there already is some content, meaning a first child, possibly a second child, depending on how everything is set up. Now, if you remember, this first child text was already here, and then we did generate a second child. So we can test if the length of the child nodes is greater than 1. Then we know that we have too much content in there, and then we're going to remove it. Here again, it's based on the opening scenario that you might have. So let's take a look at the code here. This is the code for my second button. Here's my object reference to my paragraph. And I have commented out this code, and I will uncomment it. We're creating a new I, then we're creating the text node. Now we're appending the content to the I. Now we're appending this new child to the P4. So this is our code. So what I need to do is I need to have my little if up here before we generate it, saying if the child nodes.length is greater than 1, and you can always test it with an alert. Now we're removing the child, and we're going to remove the second node. However, how you remove it depends on the opening scenario. Notice, I did decide to keep my first child. However, every time I click this button, it checks to see if the child nodes is greater than 1, and if it is, it removes the second one, which is child nodes index position 1.